Hey there everyone, welcome back to another walkthrough series. We're back again at the test number 4, reading passage 2. It's about young children's sense of identity. So we have some matching features with some classifications where we have to find the claims of the authors, meaning, or maybe researchers we have. And then finally we have some summary completion. So yeah, we will see, we will try to go one by one for the one after another for this video purposes. So let's get started. A sense of self develops in young children by degrees. The process can usefully be thought of in terms of the gradual emergence of two somewhat separate features: the self as a subject and the self as an object. William James introduced the distinction in 1892, and contemporaries of his, such as Charles Cooley, added to the developing debate. Ever since then, psychologists have continued building on the theory. What I want to do first of all is I just really want to. I see that there's a classification. I really want to when I encounter these names, I want to highlight them as I read, because of course we have classifications, and I won't even though if I encounter the answers for classifications, I won't necessarily be answering them for the video purposes. Please make sure to know that about to know about that as well. So yeah, an account of the method used by researchers in a particular study, the role of imitation in developing sense of identity, the age at which children can usually identify a static image of themselves, a reason of the limitations of scientific research into self as subject, reference to a possible link between culture and a particular form of behavior, examples of the wide range of features that contribute to the sense of self as object. All right, we might want to save that as well. All right, so let's get started. Let's just continue once again. All right, B. According to James, a child's first step on the road to self-understanding can be seen as recognition that he or she exists. I want to highlight that as well. This is an aspect of self that he labeled self as a subject, and he gave it various elements. So these include an awareness of one's own agency, one's power to act, and an awareness of one's distinctiveness from other people. Excuse me there for a second, because I have some difficulties here. These included an awareness of one's agency, one's power to act, and an awareness of one's distinctiveness from other people. Those features gradually emerge as infants explore their world and interact with caregivers. Cooley, 1902, suggested that a sense of the self as subject was primarily concerned with being able to exercise power. All right, he proposed that the earliest examples of this are an infant's attempts to control physical objects, such as toys or his or her own limbs. This is followed by attempts to affect the behavior of other people. For example, infants learn that when they cry or smile, someone responds to them. And if we look at the paragraph, the question statements, do we have anything that responds that is necessarily, let's say, paragraph B? Can we find any information from paragraph B that is suitable for any of these features? An account of the method used by researchers in a particular study, examples of the wide range of features that contribute to the sense of self as subject. No, there's nothing really, but there's a child's first step on the role of self-understanding can be seen as recognition. According to James, he proposed that the earliest example of this inference example. All right, so we don't necessarily have anything regarding the matching features. However, we will go more. Another powerful source of information for infants about the effects they can have on the world around them is provided with when others mimic them. All right, so I want to take that mimic them, because there's I found a imitation. Imitating, mimic. Many parents spend a lot of time, particularly in the early months, copying their infants' vocalization as expressions. In addition, young children enjoy looking in mirrors where their movements they can see are dependent upon their own movements. This is not to say that infants recognize the reflection as their own image, a later development. However, Lewis and Brooks Gunn, 1979, suggests that infants developing understanding that the movements they see in the mirror are contingent on their own lead to a growing awareness that they are distinct from other people. This is because they and only they can change the reflection in the mirror. I think the role of imitation in developing sense of identity. Indeed, because another powerful source of information for infants of the about the effects they can have on the world around them is provided when others mimic them, right? So however Lewis Brooks Gunn suggests that infants developing understanding that the movements they see on the mirror are contingent on their own leads to a growing awareness that others, that they are distinct from other people. Meaning, imitate is another word of saying. Mimicking is another way of saying imitating, and developing a sense of identity means are distinct from other people. So therefore, 16, but 15 is going to be number in paragraph C. I'm going to take the red color here. All right. So let's go with the D now. This understanding that children gain of themselves as active agents continues to such day-to-day relationships and interactions that the children's understanding of his or herself emerges. So the understanding that children gain themselves as active agents. This understanding is talking about that they're distinct from other people, and however, children gain of themselves as active agents continues to develop on their attempts to cooperate with others and play. Dunn, 1988, points out that it is in such day-to-day relationship and interactions with the child's interactions that the child's understanding of his or herself emerges. Empirical investigations of the self as subject in young children are, however, rather scarce because of difficulties of communication. Even if young infants can reflect on their experience, they certainly cannot express this aspect of the self directly. Okay, this is a really nice one. The age at which children can usually eat. There's nothing about age, a reason of the limitations of scientific research into self. I think this is about that because empirical investigations of the self as subject in young children are, however, rather scarce because of difficulties of communication. Because of the difficulties of communication. So let me just, my computer is not allowing me to highlight there. So alright, so I think paragraph C is, was it C? No, it was D. D is equal for number 17. Alright, let's go more. Once children have acquired a certain level of self-awareness, they begin to place themselves in a whole series of categories. They start placing themselves in a whole series of categories, which together play such an important part in defining them uniquely as themselves. This second step, I want to highlight about the processes. The second step in the development of full sense of self is what James called the self as object. This has been seen by many to the aspect of the self which is most influenced by social elements, since it is made up of a social roles such as students, brother, colleague, and characteristics which derive their meaning from comparison or interaction with other people, such as trustworthiness, shyness, sporting ability. Do we have anything for that as well? Okay. Examples of the wide range of features that contribute. Wide ranges of features that contribute to the sense of. Wide ranges are, of course, wide range of features that contribute to the sense of self as object. Meaning, this second step in the development of full sense of development of a full sense of the self, which is most influenced by full sense of self, is what James called the self as object. And special roles, special or social roles, such as student, brother, or colleague. Alright, so this has been seen by many of the aspects. So many of the aspects is another way of saying that. Another way of saying wide range of features. So I think that number 19 is going to be E for us. So it's gonna take that. All right. Cooley and other researchers suggested a close connection between a person's own understanding of their identity and other people's understanding of it. Cooley believed that by the way, we forgot about highlighting the names, which is extremely crucial for us in this case. Believed that people build up their sense of identity from the reactions of others to them, and from the view they believe others have of them. He called this self as object the looking glass self, since people come to see themselves as they're reflected in others. Mead, I want to highlight them as well. Mead went even further and saw the self and the social world as extricably bound together. The self is essentially a social structure, and it arises in social experience. It is impossible to conceive of a self arising outside of a social experience. Really nice paragraph. However, do we have anything regarding F? So F is about suggesting a close connection between person's own understanding of the idea and other people's understanding of it. But, whoops, excuse me for that. Let me just take green color here. Alright, he called self as subject. He's pretty much giving a definition of it, or how it connects. They're just showing the connection of self-identity and other people's understanding of it. The self is essentially a social structure. So he's pretty much defining. He's giving a description about self-identity or something like that. So yeah. Lewis and Brooks Gunn argue that an important developmental milestone is reached when children become able to recognize themselves visually without the support of seeing contingent movement. This recognition occurs around their second birthday. In one experiment, Lewis and Brooks Gunn, 1979, dabbed some red powder on the noses of children who were playing in front of a mirror. I want to take that. And then observed how often they touched their noses. The psychologists reasoned that if the children knew that they usually looked alike, they would be surprised by the unusual red mark and would start touching it. On the other hand, they found that children of 15 to 18 months are generally not able to recognize themselves unless other cues such as movements are present. All right. So G, what do we have? Do we have anything regarding for G? An account of the method used by researchers in a particular study. However, because I think that is the answer for us. Because or not. An account of the method used by researchers in a particular study. Let's say in one experiment, Lewis and Brooks Gunn dabbed some red powder on the noses of children who were playing in front of a mirror, and then observed how often they touched their noses. The psychologists reasoned that if the children knew what they usually looked like, they would be surprised by the unusual red mark and would start touching it. A particular study is one experiment. So I think that's paragraph G. About researchers in a particular study. An account of the method used by researchers. Of course, one method, one experiment. They dabbed some red powder on the noses of children who were playing in front of a mirror, and then they observed that they would be surprised by the unusual red mark and would start touching it. So yeah. We're left with H now. Finally, perhaps the most graphic expression of self-awareness in general can be seen longitudinal study of groups of 3 can be seen in the displays of rage, which are most common from 18 months to 3 years of age. In a longitudinal study of groups of 3 or 4 children, Bronson 1975 found that the intensity of the frustration and the anger in their disagreements increased sharply between the ages of 1 and 2 years. Often, the children's disagreement involved a struggle over a toy that none of them had played with before or after the tug of war. The children seemed to be disputing ownership rather than wanting to play with it. Although it may seem less marked in other societies, the link between the sense of self and ownership is a notable feature for the childhood in Western societies. 18. Do we have anything for 18? However, we're left with 16 as well. The age at which children can usually identify a static image of themselves. Didn't we see that in paragraph G as well? Lewis and what was it? So the age at which children can usually identify a static image of themselves. Lewis and Brooks can argue that an important development milestone is reached when children become able to recognize themselves visually without the support of seeing the contingent movement. This recognition occurs around their second birthday. So identify static image of themselves means to recognize themselves visually without the support of seeing contingent movement. So okay, one thing I didn't really realize that you may use any letter more than once. I just really wanted to talk about that as well. So I think that's another G for us. So just save that. Still we're left with 18, but 18, that's probably H. Reference to a possible link between culture and a particular form of behavior, meaning because it says, although it may be less marked in other societies, the link between the sense of self and of self-ownership is a notable feature in child and Western societies. So Western society they're referring to as a culture. Therefore, it's going to be as an H. We have to be logical here because we have to understand the text rather than trying to find some sort of paraphrases or any other synonyms. We won't always be able to use some synonyms or antonyms or whatever it is, or paraphrases, right? So we just really have to sometimes comprehend the paragraph. A sense of identity can never be formed without relationships with other people. And indeed, here Mead said that Mead went even further and saw the self and social world is extremely bound together, right? And the self is essentially social structure, and it arises in social experience. It is impossible to conceive of a self arising outside of social experience. So relationships with other people is another way of saying social experience. So that is, who said that? Mead is D. All right, let's go with that. All right, 21. A child's awareness of self is related to a sense of mastery over things and people. I know that there was a paragraph power, one's power to act, and who said it? Power to act. According to James? No? Is it according to James? Do we have James? Do you? Who said it? Cooley suggested that a sense of recognition, no, not James, but Cooley's 1902 suggested that a sense of the self as subject was primarily concerned with being able to exercise power. He proposed that the earliest examples of this are an infant's attempts to control physical objects. Control is another mastery. Master over things and people. Physical objects such as toys such as toys or his or her own limbs. This is followed by attempts to affect the behavior of other people. So people and or over things and people. So we have who said that? Cooley. Cooley said it. Because of course he proposed. Who proposed? He is referring to Cooley over there. So yeah. At a certain age, children's sense of identity leads to aggressive behavior. And we know that aggressive behavior, I found that in paragraph E. But no, I don't see it here. Oh, there we go. Frustration and anger. So, in the longitudinal study of groups of 3 or 4 children, Bronson. Let me actually use a different color for classification here. Bronson found that the intensity of the frustration and anger in the disagreements increased sharply between the ages of 1 and 2 years. Aggressive behavior is frustration and anger. Who said that? Bronson? Yes, we have E there. All right. Observing their own reflection contributes to children's self-awareness. Observing their own reflection. Their own reflection. Was it a C? Their own reflections enjoy looking in mirrors. Lewis and Brooks Gunn suggest that infants developing understanding that the movements they see in the mirror are contingent on their own leads to a growing awareness that they are distinct from other people. So yeah, contribute to, lead to. Leads to, contribute to what? Their own contributes to children's self-awareness. So reflection is another way of saying movements in the mirror, right? Movements that they see in the mirror. And is there any other options that do we think that is correct? Are contingent on their own leading to. Okay, this is because they only can change their own reflection on the mirror. This is a really good vocabulary here. Contingent on their own. Yeah, that's what I think. That because observing their own reflection. I think who said that? Was it Lewis and Brooks Gunn who said that? Lewis and Brooks Gunn. Yes, I think so. Number 23 is going to be C. No, it wasn't that. It was actually a different person who said it, wasn't it? Oh, hold on. I think that number 19, was it 19? I mean 23. Observing their own reflection contributes to children's self-awareness. But who said that? We just literally found it right now. So it's Lewis and Brooks again, right? So I think 23 is C, anyways. Because I don't see any other options. So okay, how children acquire a sense of identity. What do they do? So first, children come to realize that they can have an effect on the world around them, for example by handling objects or causing the image to move when they face a something. So many parents spend a lot of time, particularly in the early movements, copying their infants' localizations. In addition, young children enjoy looking in mirrors where the movements they can see are dependent upon their own movements. This means that when they're looking in mirrors, they can cause the image to move. So like young children enjoy looking in mirrors where the movements they see are dependent upon their own movements. So they're causing the image to move when they face a mirror, right? Just say mirror. I'm just gonna take brackets and say mirror or mirrors, because young children enjoy looking in mirrors. Or maybe if we have some copying mistake here, grammatically, looking in mirrors. This aspect of self-awareness is difficult to research directly because of something problems. There's a word difficulty because of difficulty of communication problems. Communication. There we go. We have however rather scarce because empirical investigation of the self as subject in young children are, however, rather scarce because of difficulty of communication. We have communication here. Let me just take that. Communication. Secondly, children start to become aware of how they're viewed by others. One important stage in this process is the visual recognition of themselves, which usually occurs when they reach the age of 2. In Western societies, at least, the development of self-awareness is often linked to a sense of ownership, I think. I do remember that, if there was an ownership in the Western societies. So they said, although it may be less marked in other societies, the link between the sense of self and of ownership is a notable feature of childhood. Sense of self, development of self-awareness is often linked to a sense of ownership and can lead to disputes. Dispute means disagreements. Is it? Yeah, so I think that's 26 is ownership. The development of self-awareness is often linked to a sense of some ownership and can lead to disputes. So, although it may be less marked in other societies, the link between the sense of self and of ownership, the link between the sense. So the link between the self is also another way saying linked to a sense of ownership, and so the self is self-awareness is linked with ownership. Therefore, it is the same thing. So the link between the sense of self and of ownership. So there we go, guys. We have particularly finished finding the answer for number 26. 26, yeah. So yeah, there we go, guys. We have pretty much finished another reading passage too. Test number 4, Cambridge number 9. So if you have any other questions, if you think that any of the explanations or maybe any part of this video of walkthrough series was not coherent enough for you to understand, please leave your advices or recommendations in the comment section below. Like the video if you have liked it, or if you of course loved watching it, and if you think that this has obviously been a useful part for you. So yeah, however, once again, if you love the video, please smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. But if you have, thank you very much for the support. Others therefore, if you haven't, please do make sure to subscribe, as your help and contribution. But just tapping the subscription button helps a lot for this channel to grow and to keep on providing such educational content for everyone, free of charge, but to all budgets. So there we go, guys. Once again, thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful time.